On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors win an absolute banger of a preseason game against the Celtics. And is that a creeping sense of optimism I'm feeling?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey! What's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, October the 16th, 7 days from the start of the Toronto Raptors 2024-25 season. It's very exciting, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now going on 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the bad website that sucks, at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, which is where I'm hanging out during games throughout the season. When I'm in the arena, when I'm at home, I'm going to be in the Discord, and you can join me on my long bus rides home to ask me anything you want in a brand new channel I invented last night in the Discord. Come hang out. It's a great community we got building around the show. We'd love to see you there, and it's free to join. Again, link in the description of the podcast. As always, hop on in there. We'd love to see you become part of the Sicko Brigade. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Always appreciate it on the audio and video sides of things. And today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Perfect time. Lots of sports going on. Go check them out. All right. On today's show, rockin' solo, breaking down the Toronto Raptors' absolutely thrilling, wildly entertaining preseason game. A sentence I never thought I'd say after watching the first three preseason games, but the Raptors take down the Celtics, who played a lot of their horses. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Al Horford, all in there. Some of them playing north of 30 minutes. That's pretty fun. The Raptor killer extraordinaire, Peyton Pritchard, was in there too. And the Raptors take down the Celtics again, 119-118. Thankfully, mercifully avoiding overtime in the preseason, which should not be a thing. And we get to walk away really happy with a fun finish to that game. We're going to get into some work done by Ochai, Agbaji, and Davion Mitchell to kind of carve out their roles on the team in what was both of their best games so far in the preseason. Ochai, Agbaji might have been his best game as a Raptor, period. We're going to get to that coming up later. We got the good, the bad, and the as we always do on the heels of a Raptors game. But off the top, I think it's all right to feel optimistic about the Toronto Raptors starting lineup. And a big reason why is the three guys we saw last night who figured to be part of the Raptors starting lineup at full health. Scottie Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, Gradey Dick all played really, really fantastic basketball and played fantastic basketball in concert with one another. Obviously, the headliner here, Scottie Barnes, who clearly had his best preseason game so far and was unbelievable. 26, 9, and 10. Shot creation, defense, all over the place. Mid-range, the threes were falling, obviously. He had a pretty incredible run of heat check threes early in this game. Hand was just like fully on the stove as it scalded his palms off, yet he kept on banging them. It's 5 threes on 9 attempts when all is said and done. A really, really impressive performance from Scottie Barnes, and just like overpowering. When Scottie Barnes plays like that, when Scottie Barnes is getting into stuff quickly, when he's driving with force and like this sort of zip and pop that he can play with when he's really engaged, he's a damn hard player to slow down. He can get to any place on the floor he wants to go, and he becomes the kind of guy who lets you be a little bit optimistic about the starting lineup, about the team not being as bad as everyone seems to think the team is going to be. Now, look, I don't think the Raptors are going to go become some 45-win team this season, but if Scottie Barnes is playing like we saw last night, it becomes like an option on the table at the very least for them to be, a 500-ish team. That is an all-NBA level version of Scottie Barnes. Again, it's one game. It's the preseason, so I'm not declaring we're going to see that guy every night, but we know it's in there. And if that's the Scottie Barnes you get, where he is forcefully getting the team into their offense, where he's playing off of the other guys on the team as an off-ball guy, as an on-ball guy, as a hub, as a creator, doing the transition thing that he does so well. There were so many instances last night of him grabbing a rebound and then instantly hit a head pass, getting it up quick. He didn't finish very well in transition himself, but man, oh man, Really, really encouraging stuff to see Scottie Barnes play that all-encompassing a game in the preseason. Even had a few flourishes of really nice on-ball defense. He had one possession in the second half, might have been the fourth quarter, just completely locking up Jason Tatum and forcing a really tough missed three on a pull-up. Like kind of chased him out to half court, stayed square, stayed with him all the way, stayed huge to ward off passing lanes. Look, I don't think Scottie Barnes is best as an on-ball guy, never has been, but again, it's in there. There's something in there, and man, oh man, that was a thrilling effort from Scottie Barnes. You also saw Gradey Dick, an absolutely two-message performance from Gradey Dick last night. Above the break threes, corner threes, cutting, transition, finishing in traffic, like hook shots busted out of nowhere. Really cool stuff to see from Gradey Dick. I think if it wasn't already locked up, I think he locked up the starting two-guard job. He needs to be in the starting lineup. I know there are going to be ups and downs, especially with the defense. There were times last night where it wasn't great, but he's active, he's engaged, he's hunting deflections. He talked in the post game about how those deflections kind of infuse more energy into himself and kind of get him rolling. I think there's something there for Gradey Dick to offer as a defensive player, on top of being a guy who makes the whole offense really damn hard to guard, because he is someone you just have to account for. And if you don't account for him, he's banging an open three on you, or he's getting an easy runway on a baseline cut to the rim. Whole bunch of those last night. I thought the way Scottie Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl played off of one another, and we'll get to Yak in a second, but those three guys together, super fun, super connected. And I asked Darko Rajakovic after the game about what that sort of means for this team, how their chemistry is coming along, and what those guys do to complement one another. Here is what Darko Rajakovic had to say.
I mean, but first of all, pace and force that Scottie is playing with, his willingness to pass the ball, Grady's shooting ability, and also the way he's playing without the ball, cutting and moving, and also Yak, who is a very good connector. You know, when he plays in pick and roll, he catches the ball in a short roll and in pocket pass, or when he just plays through him, he's also a very willing passer, and guys are learning how to play with each other. It's going to take us time to really gel and become what we want to be, but this was a good sign tonight.
Sure was a good sign. Those three guys, I think the way they offset one another, the way they complement each other, the way they cover for each other's weaknesses, I'm all in on those three guys. And then you factor in adding Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett to the mix, and all of a sudden, I think this starting lineup is going to have the juice to be really, really good. Jakob Poeltl last night, just to quickly touch on him, 15, 16, and 4. The career season is coming, man. The situation is set up for Jakob Poeltl to succeed within the context of this team, finishing everything all over the offensive glass, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, as the thing the Raptors have been absolutely all over this preseason so far, and it seems like it's a directive for them this year. Jakob Poeltl, a big part of that. And I think the thing I love about Jakob Poeltl and the way he fits within this team, look, I think at full health, with Quickley, with Barrett, with Barnes, with Gradey and Jakob Poeltl, there's a lot of shooting in that lineup between Gradey and Quickley. I think it's not the most spacing, full and flush lineup you've ever seen, because Scottie is still someone who can wax and wane. RJ's taking a lot of wide open threes that teams don't care about. But I think Jakob Poeltl, he's made it work in far worse spacing environments before. And I think a thing we saw last night with him is he's just a master of creating space despite being a non-shooting threat, and one of the most sort of like obvious non-shooting threats on any team scouting report in the entire league. And I think we got to start a Jakob Poeltl free throw line push shot counter, because that was a thing he leaned on a lot last night, especially working in pick and roll with Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shed. Those two guys, those guards, they're rim pressure dependent. They're not three-point shooters. There's not much pull up to their game. They can finish at the rim. They can get fouled, and they need that sort of runway to the rim. So what does Jakob Poeltl do? He's not rolling hard all the way to the rim like he might if he's playing with Scottie Barnes or he's playing with Immanuel Quickley and they have a little bit more pull up to their game and they want to operate in those sort of 18-foot ranges. No, like Jakob Poeltl, sort of a shallow roll, doesn't get all the way down to the rim, and is there for that outlet for that push shot if Mitchell or Shed can't get all the way. And he's damn good at making it. He can put the ball on the deck. He, had a couple adventures with that didn't go super well last night, but he's just a master at creating space when there is none. He is so good. We've seen it when he's played with Pascal Siakam and those very shooting starved lineups the Raptors rolled out last year, where he can just kind of seep into little pockets of space along the baseline to get out of the way and still be a viable outlet. He can finish from those spots. Obviously, the way he passes from the elbows pulls the strings of the defense and allows all kinds of stuff to happen towards the rim. The whole Raptors offense is designed to get stuff moving towards the rim, and Jakob Poeltl being away from the rim and passing from there is a big reason why they're able to accomplish that. Obviously the screening he brings to the table, that's a huge agent for space, right? It's not spacing in terms of court geometry necessarily, but it's giving guys the runway to get into space and make stuff happen, which is essentially what all team sports are about, is finding space to make athletes do cool things in. And Jakob Poeltl, damn good at it, even though he's not your classic, stretch the floor, pull the big out type of big. He is really good. I think it's going to be a really good year for him. And again, that Yak, Scottie, and Gradey trio looked really damn complimentary last night. I also asked Gradey Dick about this and sort of how the chemistry is coming along with those guys. Here's what Gradey had to say about the improved chemistry and the process of playing with those guys and what he likes playing about, or likes about playing, that is, with Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. Grady, it seems like playing off of Scottie and Yak tonight, a lot of good stuff there. What do you like playing about what do you like about playing with those guys, and how do you feel like the chemistry is coming along with them?
Well, it's been amazing. This year and obviously the last year of the type of players that they are, the amount of attention that they get from the defense, I feel like helps me, and the role that I provide is amazing. I love it because they bring so much attention whenever they drive the ball, and I can just kind of fill in the gaps and play off them and help them that way and help the team that way, and hopefully I can do that vice versa, where I'm driving the gaps and opening up lanes for them to score the ball and stuff like that. So I feel like we can play off each other like that. It's amazing when everyone's selfless like that.
Sure is, man. Sure is. And I think it's only going to get more potent once you bring in the on and off ball juice of Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett's incredible finishing. I kind of think those five guys could turn out to be kind of a perfect basketball fit on the offensive end. There's a lot of passing. There's a lot of intelligence. There's a lot of shooting now in the form of Quickley and Gradey. And there's such dynamic shooters that it helps offset not having like dyed-in-the-wool knockdown shooters in every other part of the floor. Talked about Yacht creating space. I just think those guys fit beautifully. Defensively, we'll see, right? It's going to be a process. Gradey had some moments last night getting crossed up by Jaylen Brown. He's someone that teams are going to go and pick at when they feel like they need to get a bucket. But if you have good help principles, you have Yak and Scottie in behind as the sort of backline of defense, I think you can survive that. And the way Gradey just kind of injects so much dynamism to the offense, I think he's got to be in there to start. And I'm feeling the starters, man. I'm really into it. The bench, we'll see. The bench is very much an open question. But if we can get a little bit more of what we saw from Davion Mitchell and Ochai Agbaji last night, maybe the questions with the bench become a little bit less pressing. We are going to get into the performances of Mitchell and Agbaji in their starting gigs last night, playing 30 minutes, and what it means for what the bench could look like once the Raptors return to health. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Go check them out. It's the #1 sports book in North America. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book once again. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's super easy. You just go peruse. If you're watching a game, you got a hunch, you want to go put some money down on whether this drive is going to score a touchdown or whether this team is going to come back from a halftime deficit in whatever sport you choose, you can go and do that and peruse the very easy to use FanDuel website. An app, of course. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And it's not just in-game bets, of course. You've got futures bets. You've got the NHL season getting rolling here. Maybe you want to go bet some spreads or some money lines or whatever it might be. You can go do that with the NBA as the season gets near. If you want to pick a champion for a futures bet, you want to go and pick yourself an MVP winner, you can go and throw some money down on that. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you play your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Rolling along here with your breakdown of the Raptors' very fun 119-118 preseason win over the Boston Celtics last night. Planned the parade. This game hinted at there is some fun, bad potential with this team. Some fun, good potential even. Not, over the course of the full season necessarily, but in certain spurts in games, absolutely they are capable of some pretty fun stuff. especially because I think that starting lineup is going to rock. By the way, a quick note on the starting lineup. Immanuel Quickley was cleared for contact yesterday, so that's great. We'll see if we get him on Friday in that preseason game against the Nets to close out the preseason schedule, or is it Saturday, whenever they play? I don't know. Either way, you have that to look forward to a little bit later this week, hopefully with Quickley making a return. It seems like he's on track to play in this first game of the season, but who knows? We've still yet to get any clarification, but cleared for contact is very good. Anyway, let's get back to the bigger question on this team, which is the bench, the reserves, the guys who are going to fill in behind what I think can be a very good starting lineup. And that is, look, it's dicey, right? Obviously not after the best start to the year health-wise. Kelly Olynyk been out with some back stuff. Bruce Brown, of course, recovering from knee surgery. It's going to take some time to get those guys back. Hopefully Olynyk's, just kind of doing, 12-year veteran maintenance and is going to be ready for the season. We'll see. Jamal Shed, of course, went down last night too with a hamstring thing. Hopefully he's all right. Maybe he's less going to be part of the early season plans anyway, so that doesn't hurt them too much. But either way, the bench is the thing that's going to make or break whether this team can be competitive, right? If the starters are coming in and doing great work, but the bench is giving it all away, that's not going to be the recipe for success. The bench has to hold serve and be neutral-ish or just slight negative. If the starters are really good, you can get away with your bench being a slight negative. You just can't have it be a catastrophe like it was for much of last year. And look, last night, the worst part of this game, the second quarter, a lot of that was Scottie Barnes plus the bench. Now, it wasn't the best of bench lineups. He was playing with Jonathan Mogbo. I think Jamison Battle was in there for a hot second. There was a lot of Davion Mitchell. There was a lot of Jamal Shed. Look, not the best set of lineups for Scottie Barnes to go and have success with. I think Scottie Kelly as a duo is going to be something they lean on quite a bit, and I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. We'll have to see how they fill in the defensive gaps in that look, but I think Scottie Kelly is sort of a basis to organize your offense in the second unit. It's a nice start to go into the season with. I think Ochai, Agbaji, and Davion Mitchell, if they can play like they did last night, you've got a bench. Now, are they going to do that? That's a tall ask because they were both pretty awesome. Davion Mitchell, maybe less awesome. He was 3 of 7 from the field, 3 of 6 from downtown, so not making much happen from 2-point range. Continues to not really get downhill all the way when he's got the ball in his hands. It'd be nice if he could get a little closer to the rim where he can take advantage of being a really good finisher as he's been throughout his career. Hasn't quite happened just yet. But yeah, still hit 3 threes last night. You'll take that all day. And if there are games this season where Davion Mitchell hits 3 threes, things probably are looking up for the Raptors. 9 points overall, 10 assists for him. And look, I think Mitchell's a good passer. I don't think he's some visionary passer. I think he makes kind of the simple, easy read, but he makes them and he doesn't really screw up those easy reads. And I think, that there's something in sort of someone just kind of having those easy reads down as your backup point guard. I still have big questions about him as an on-ball guard. I think we saw with him working off ball and getting those couple catch and shoots, working off of Scottie, that is a place where he can really be effective if he's hitting shots. And I think the way to get him to the rim is probably to more have him attacking closeouts too than attacking a set defense from the top of a pick and roll or whatever, but or in transition too, which I think he's been pretty impressive at. We'll see about Mitchell, but if he can play like he did last night, where he gave that on-ball defense the point of attack that you expect from him, he hit a couple threes and he set the table very well for the guys he was out there with. That's a bench player. That's an NBA bench player who can get by and be a solid eighth man for you. The best we've seen from Mitchell so far, and hopefully we get to see a little bit more of that. I would love to see him be able to weaponize his 2-point shooting more because he's really good at it. He's always been really good at it. Just getting to those twos seems to be the problem. Ochai Agbaji, I thought, played one of, if not the best games he's played as a Toronto Raptors last night. He was very solid, 16 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, 7 of 11 overall, 1 of 4 from downtown, which by my math means 6 of 7 from 2. And look, I thought it was interesting last night. Darko Rajakovic talked about Ochai and how the priority for him is not shooting, which I think is surprising considering he's someone who was a shooter in college, and in theory to hang the 3-and-D archetype is what he theoretically can be, and to keep him in the NBA. It doesn't seem like the 3 is that much of the sort of priority right now for Darko, and the defense very much is the thing that's coming into focus. And I have to say, guarding a lot of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown last night. I thought Ochai Agbaji had a really nice defensive game. I've not been super impressed with his defense overall on and off the ball since coming to Toronto. Maybe that's partly tied to the team context being absolutely wretched last year, but I think in general, his defensive reputation has maybe been a little bit higher than the actual on-court results throughout his career. That said, he looked really good last night, and if he can give you legitimate point of attack defense to help neutralize opposing big wings, even as a guy who's just 6'5", he's got good footwork. He's reasonably strong for a guy his size. Can he just give you a little bit of resistance till the help can come? Like, that's all you're asking for. Speaking of not giving resistance till the help can come, RIP to Bruno Fernando after Chris Boucher served him up on a platter last night for Jason Tatum in the first half. Boy, oh boy, that was mean. Boucher owes Bruno lots of money. He could not stay in front of Tatum, save his life. Either way, I digress. Yeah, I think Ochai, look, I have not been super keen on him being a big part of the rotation, honestly. It seems very obvious he's going to be part of the rotation early on. I think he has until Bruce Brown comes back to really snatch a spot and sort of cement his place in the top 8 or 9 of this rotation. And maybe he can do that. Maybe the rim pressure he can provide. And last year, 50% of all the shots with the Raptors came at the rim. He shot 61%, not great, but he shot 69% at the rim with the Jazz last season, which is very good. If he can sort of hone the finishing, which he talked last night after the game, I think in response to a question from Samson Folk about, he spent the summer working on his finishing to kind of refine that, as this is a team that is going, again, I talked about it earlier, the offense is designed to send people towards the rim and get things moving that way. And if Ochai can do that off cuts, off the odd drive, hey, maybe there's something there as a guy who can be a connective piece. He's, had some nice flourishes of passing. He had 5 assists in the last preseason game, 3 last night. I think he's averaging 3 throughout the preseason so far. If you can get that sort of connectivity with some defense, with some at-rim finishing, maybe you can get by without him being a knockdown 3-point shooter. Though it would be very nice if he were a knockdown 3-point shooter. You play him in lineups that have lots of shooting. Maybe he's out there with Quickley and Gradey a bunch, after Scottie becomes the first sub to go in and with the bench. Maybe he's out there with Kelly Olynyk a bit. There's a way here to sort of rig some lineups to optimize Ochai Agbaji. And if he's going to defend like he did last night, that is a way to optimize Ochai Agbaji. That's a way for him to optimize himself and get into more games. And so we'll see about the bench. I think it's a little less barren than maybe we thought coming into the year, because I do think between Mogbo and Jamal Shed, I think one of those guys has something to contribute this season. Between Bruno Fernando and Chris Boucher, both guys who have their flaws, no doubt, but both have one very clear skill: offensive rebounding. Boy, oh boy, this team wants to offensive rebound, and can those guys ever do it? There are niches and roles for these guys to fill. And again, I don't think it's some very impressive, 2017, 18 bench mob level second unit or anything like that. It's going to rely a lot on starters staggered in to kind of lift everybody up. But if the guys who are lifting up can occupy little niches and roles and just provide passable basketball and defend their asses off, there's a chance for the bench to not be the abject failure it was last year, where they completely fell off a cliff when it was Scottie and 4 bench guys, or really anyone in bench guys. They just couldn't find those looks that worked last year. They don't have a perfect set of guys to do it, but Jacoby Walter comes back. There's a little bit more shooting juice there when he's available. Maybe you can kind of piece together enough of these looks. If Mitchell and Agbaji in particular are playing like they did last night, there's maybe a way to salvage this bench and make it slightly below average, as opposed to one of the worst in the NBA, which would be big. That's a big step. We'll come back on the other side, round things out with the good, the bad, and the to put a capper on this one. A fun one. And that we'll get into that in particular. A fun preseason game. Maybe that's my good. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the single best place to go and buy tickets for the sporting events that you want to go to. It's super great. Of course, you got the NHL season starting up right now. You want to go see some Leafs tickets or get some Leafs tickets. They're very expensive, but you can save some bucks with Game Time, and they will help you find the very best deals. Same goes for the Toronto Raptors. Same goes for all the sports going on. The PWHL season's coming up as well. So if you want to go get some tickets to see some live sports, of course, you can do comedy, concerts, theater, all that as well. Game Time is the place for you. You can toggle on the all-in pricing feature. I recommend doing this. It gives you the full price, no back-end fees or anything like that surprise you. You know exactly what you're going to pay going in. You get seat view, so you get a panoramic view. If you've never been to the venue before, never sat in a section before, you can see exactly what it's going to look like, and you have the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find something for cheaper or somewhere else in the same section and row. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Well, it's game time, of course. Back at it here, wrapping things up with the good, the bad, and the the way we wrap up every single episode of this here podcast that comes on the heel of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. A thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that's got me a wee bit intrigued about what lies ahead for your Toronto Raptors. Let's get started with the good. And my good, as teased before, is watching a preseason game that didn't suck. Shout out Darko Rajakovic, number one, for riding the starters a little longer in this one. Thought maybe after the third quarter, this was going to be one where they said, okay, screw it, we'll pack it in. We're up quite a bit here, 10 or 11. Maybe we just pack it in and say, hey, nice work, everybody. Job well done. No, stuck him out again for the fourth quarter. We got more Scottie Barnes. He didn't get the triple-double, which is heartbreaking. Really wanted that preseason triple-double for Scottie, and he couldn't quite get there. But we did see a little bit more Scottie in terms of a beautiful back down and finish, and then a big trailer three to cap his time on the floor with a really fun ice in the veins, Dennis Schroeder level celebration going back the other way. Really liked that we got to see a more sort of earnest run for the guys who matter most for this team. And I thought they deserved it. Like, why not? You're playing the Celtics. You're up against Tatum and Brown. You're having a really nice game. Try to close it out a little bit. And I thought they did a pretty damn good job of that. And hey, shout out as well to DJ Carton, Jamison Battle, Brandon Carlson with the big last second block, Jamias Ramsey, who didn't play very well, but was on the floor for the end of this game, and Jonathan Mogbo closing it down. Shout out DJ Carton for hitting those free throws to save us from a preseason game overtime, which none of us wanted to see. I think you got to feel pretty happy about just the entertainment value of that game. And hopefully they can replicate that in games in the regular season. And if they do, the fun bad moniker is very much going to be something that this team can go by. A lot of fun. On the sort of player side of things, very quickly, Jamison Battle, that buttery 3-point stroke, working again, 2 of 5 from downtown, hit a big mid-range shot as well, was out there for crunch time in this game, was a very early sub as well, which I thought was interesting. There's the battle for the 15th roster spot. I don't think Battle's going to get that one because I think Bruno Fernando's just going, he's the easiest guy to give it to. And as much as Fernando is kind of no great shakes on offense, he is a very good rebounder and I think provides just like a nice defensive backbone. So I think Fernando's going to get that last spot, but I would not be upset at all if Jamison Battle got the Brandon Carlson two-way spot. And if he doesn't, and he gets just sent down to the 905, he's an Exhibit 10 guy. The Raptors have his rights. They can convert him anytime if he's playing well down there. So it's not the end of the world. It's really, we're talking about the trials and tribulations of 15th or 18th men in the NBA. It's not that serious, but that's just kind of my quick 2 cents on the end of roster battle. Let's go to the bad. Overturning Jonathan Mogbo's putback from the gods in the second quarter was a crime against dunks, a crime against fun. Okay, sure, I realize he grabbed the rim with his left hand as he was going up and skying 13 feet in the air to grab the ball and jam it down. I guess you're not allowed to do that, but you should be allowed to do that. It's cool, it's fun, and if you have the dexterity as a human being to go up, time a rebound, a high arcing rebound coming off of a missed three, get up there, grab it, and also sturdy yourself by holding onto the rim with the other hand, that should count. I'm sorry. It's very upsetting. This is the year of Vince Carter. We should be celebrating all dunks and getting rid of any rules that prevent dunks. I think you should be able to grab the rim with one hand and yam it with the other, and that should be totally fine. Bad. Hell, that should be worth 4 points if you can do that, because it's bloody impressive, and I will still be thinking about that putback for a long time, because I think it illustrates Jonathan Mogbo has got the hops, baby. All right, let's get to the And for me, the Toronto Raptors are the number one offensive Sorry, not number one offensive. We'll get into that. They are the number one rebounding team in the NBA so far in the preseason. 54.3% of all available rebounds have gone to the Toronto Raptors, including being, as I mentioned, number one in offensive rebounding percentage at north of 37%. Yes, 37% of their own misses have been collected by a Toronto Raptor. That's huge. They were 18th in offensive rebounding percentage last season at 28.1%. And this is despite, I think, Darko Rajakovic, if he had his druthers, his teams would be all over the offensive glass. It's one of the very first things he mentioned last year when he was hired, when he was doing preseason pressers and stuff like that. He is of the mind that offensive rebounding is back in vogue. Of course, this was pioneered largely by Nick Nurse's Raptors back a couple years ago, the possession gaming, and it seems like they have a pretty sort of set, prescribed strategy for how they're going to crash on the offensive glass. I'm excited to kind of explore that a little bit more as they're having a lot of success with it here in the preseason. Again, it's the preseason. We don't know how much it's going to hold up, but there's a very clear directive. This team is going to crash the offensive glass at all costs. They know they're going to miss a lot of shots, and hopefully that can translate into some good results on the offensive end that doesn't burn them too much in transition defense going back the other way. But yeah, really impressive. They are also 29th in defensive rebounding. So yeah, very much in the stage of figuring what the hell is going on with the rebounding. I do think the offensive rebounding thing I think can stick because they have good offensive rebounders. Jakob Poeltl, very good. Chris Boucher, one of the best. Scottie Barnes, good offensive rebounder. Jonathan Mogbo is a rebound vacuum. Bruno Fernando doesn't do a whole lot, but he does sure as hell rebound because he's good at it. Like I think there is something here with the collection of guys they have out there. I think also, Gradey Dick, we know, is a guy who's usually hunting the offensive glass. I think Ochai Agbaji seems to be sort of around and rooting around for those offensive boards as well. There seems to be a directive here. It's the preseason. We'll see if the numbers hold up. They surely won't hold up to these extremes. They're not going to be the number one rebounding team in all of basketball, powered by ridiculous offensive rebounding numbers and second to worst defensive rebounding numbers. But we'll see, because they were just a wretched rebounding team in general last season. The offensive rebounding was not a thing they could lean on to help supplement their offense. Maybe it can be this year. And if that's the case, you have to bake that into your expectations for the Raptors offense. If they're going and grabbing, 5-6 extra possessions a game, that's probably going to lead to a little bit more success for this team. With that, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out and rocking with the show. As always, we will be back again on Thursday as we continue our march towards the season. Friday, we're recording our over-unders prop special that'll air on Monday. Looking forward to that. We got bold predictions with Joseph Cacharo, a new annual tradition coming up next week on the day the season begins. And there's some fun news coming next week about ways you can get more of my stuff. Which maybe some writing. We'll see. That's a little teaser. We'll get to that. Probably promote it later this week or early next week. Either way, some fun stuff coming down the pipe as the season gets near. We will leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll talk to you again on Thursday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, etc., etc. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. I am 6 of my last 7. This is Scottie Barnes' first quarter level heat check. Let's go. Bags open, baby. 7 of 8. Let's go.